Hi there. Come on in. Time for another edition of Michigan Outdoors. I'm Fred Trost, and I have to pick out what we put on the show week after week. A lot of people ask me, is that difficult? Are you kidding me? In the state of Michigan, is that difficult? Why, look at the map. Look at the water we have around the state. Look at the land we have, the Upper Peninsula, so much hunting and fishing. It isn't difficult at all to come up with ideas. Sometimes to sort them out and pick exactly what we want to put on is a little difficult. We get requests from you viewers, what you want to see and what you want to see again. And you know what we most often get requested? Right here. White-tailed deer, big bucks. The most oft-requested show is to see once again our Big Buck Night. So we're going to take you back this evening and talk about big bucks through our Big Buck 1983 show. And also we're going to talk about some fishing in Michigan. So you stay tuned. It's Thursday night. Time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
It's rare to see such a collection of big bucks like this, especially for this deer season. I didn't do nearly as well. In fact, I'm not even going to talk about how I did. That's not what this show is all about. We want to talk about these fellas, the racks they got. Of course, the big problem is, how do you compare racks like this? How do we decide which is the top rack in the state? We have two commemorative buck scorers right here. Ned Fogel. Ned, you're generally associated with the fisheries program with the DNR.
Right.
But you're a Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett commemorative buck scorer. And Glenn Williams, you're commemorative buck scorer.
Correct.
We're going to have you guys answer a question here. Ed? Yeah. Lay on us from our mailbag here a typical question we get every year at this time.
That's right. Please send me information on Boone and Crockett and Safari systems of counting points on buck trophies.
Okay, Dave, let me use your rack right here as an example. This is a mighty fine, typical whitetail rack. Now, fellas, if we were scoring this Safari Club system, now Safari Club is an organization of big game hunters from around the world. They have a system which scores every point and every inch goes into the book. Right?
That's correct.
Okay, so there aren't any deductions at all. You measure the length of the beams, length of the tines, and so on, and add them together and come up with a score. But with Safari Club, you have to be a member of Safari Club International in order to go in the book.
That's correct.
Now, what about Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young?
And commemorative bucks, you don't have to be members.
Well, Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young, you have to pay, though, don't you?
You have to pay to those, but you don't have to be a member to get it into the book.
Okay, what does it cost to have your buck scored Boone and Crockett?
Okay, for Boone and Crockett, for the entry fee is $30, and it's $25 for Pope and Young.
And then you get a chance to be in their record book.
That's right.
Commemorative bucks, Glenn?
We do not charge anybody to join our to have the deer scored in our organization.
Okay, and there are 55 volunteer scorers around the state. How would you go about scoring this rack? Would you run through me the basic measurements?
Yeah, this is a typical, beautiful 8-point rack. We scored by symmetry. We take the length of the main beams,
Each main beam.
and we take the length of the brow points and each additional point, okay? And we make deductions by the corresponding points.
Okay, this point matches this one.
Right, and this one matches this one.
Okay, now it looks like this one's a little longer. So if that's, say, an inch longer, you subtract
There
an
would be
inch?
an inch deduction, that's correct.
Right.
And then we take the length of the inside spread, and we also take 4 circumferences. The brow between the burr and the first point, and we'll do this in additional 4 different places.
Okay, now different scorers, of course, have to make the judgment as to what is the midpoint and where does the point start. Is it fairly consistent?
It's fairly consistent. You'll find that once you become pretty good at scoring, why most scores will come pretty close together.
And I'm sure that there have been people, Ned, who you've scored that have wanted to go for a second opinion.
That's right.
Somewhere else. On a non-typical rack that has different, like a couple of these we have with tines coming out in different places, that's scored in a different system?
It's basically scored the same thing, but instead of deductions, you will add those points to the score sheet.
Okay, well, most of the racks we have here tonight are typical. We're going to talk to the fellas and gals, too, who have gotten these racks. They've all been scored commemorative bucks. That's the system we're using. But you know, to have a trophy, Jean Roll, you don't have to have a commemorative bucks for Pope and Young.
No.
You are a taxidermist.
Yes.
She is not just what you'd call the average taxidermist. We had a taxidermy competition last year at the Boat and Fishing Show in Detroit. You were named the Mammal Taxidermist of the Year. your deer head took number one out of, we had over 70 entries of deer heads. Lo and behold, if a doe
A doe.
didn't win. Our judges thought that this was the most realistic looking deer head. And this will be down at the Boat and Fishing Show this year. In fact, we're going to have a whole display of your work, of all types of things. What is it about your deer heads that commands so much attention?
The eyes and the ears, getting them to look alert, catching the characteristic of the deer.
Well, you know, the ears, you can see on the back of the ears, evidently the muscles, it looks like they're perked right up there. I would say this deer could snort any minute and it wouldn't surprise me too much. But what is it about the eyes? What do you do that is so different?
Just study the real animal, the live animal, and try to capture what the animal looks like.
In your taxidermy work, you're part-time?
Yes.
You work in Lansing at, is it Olds?
Oldsmobile, yes.
And sort of have a dream maybe someday going full-time taxidermy?
If I could make a living at it, I would, but it's hard
Well, you know why it's hard for you.
because of the time it takes me to do one.
That's right. She spends so much time on these mounts. Most taxidermists charge about how much for a deer head?
I think the going rate's probably 175 to 200 in the average shop.
And you charge a little more than that.
Yeah.
And you put in a lot more time. Well, here, another deer that you have right here, this buck, for example.
This is just a little fork.
But the unusual thing is its ears. See if we can see this ear back here that's behind. What is that all about? Why would you mount
Well,
a deer that way?
This guy's looking off to his left, and when a deer does this from the live deer I have at home, it's typical for him to throw that ear forward and the other back, because they're kind of all the time paying attention to what's going on all around them.
Do you have deer captive at home? Or are they just wild?
They're bought from a breeder, so they're legal, but yes, I have.
So
four of
you
them.
study the deer.
That's what they're
Well,
there
that's
for.
that's how taxidermists get to the top in the
Yes,
competition.
no one could recreate something unless they know what it looks like. No matter how good you are in the skill of being a taxidermist, if you don't know what the animal looks like, you'll never be able to recreate him.
Well, Gene, you'll have, I hope you'll come down to our Sportsman's Banquet and have a display there of some of your work and pick up the award, the trophies here. Our top taxidermist will be there. And you can see your work at the Boat and Fishing Show
Very
in
good.
February. So that's really something to look forward to. When you look at this doe, it looks like she just stuck her head right through the wall. Well, you know, this deer season, Gene, for me, it was what you call a bummer.
I heard.
Yeah, it was a bummer. But Bob Garner says that I'm okay because I'm in the majority, right, Bob?
Fred, I'd prefer to think it was the weather that kept most of us in the majority, but the initial facts are in on the 1983 firearm deer season, and it was down a little bit. We'll take a look here at the Upper Peninsula. Region 1, buck kill was 18,400, down about 9%. Antlerless kill was 1,600, up 43%. And the reason the antlerless kill was up in the Upper Peninsula was the fact that they increased the area about double, and they also increased the number of permits in the Potato Belt up there. In Region 2, however, the buck kill was down substantially to 44,500, or 27% down. The antlerless kill was also down very substantially to 12,500. That's down 68%. The reason being that the antlerless kill was down so drastically up there was they cut back on antlerless permits by about 60%. In Region 3, however, the story wasn't quite so bad as that. The buck kill was 25,300 in the southern part of the Lower Peninsula, down 13%. I really think a lot of that's due to weather. And the antlerless kill was 16,700, down 17%. But you have to remember there was a 10% cutback in antlerless permits in Region 3. The statewide totals, well, they look kind of bad, but let's put them into perspective a little bit. The buck kill was down 88,000, or buck kill was 88,200, down 20%. The antlerless kill was 30,800, down 40%, leaving the 1983 gun season with a grand total of 119,000 deer harvested, down 26%. And you know, Fred, that's about the 9th best season in the record book. So it really wasn't quite that bad.
About my 9th best season, for sure, at least down there. But we're going to talk to some of the hunters now who got bucks. You know, we've always had women, or men, not women, on Big Buck Night before. And when Greg Gray called us up and said, my wife Mary got an 11 point, she'd really like to be on the show. Here's the 11 point right here. Mary, it's not going to make the record book. It's too small. Too small for the record book. It's an 11 pointer, but you got to where? Around home?
Holly Recreation.
How long have you been hunting deer?
8 years.
Who got you into it?
My husband, he taught me everything I know.
And
Everything.
since he taught you, how many deer have you gotten in 8 years?
5.
Hey, sounds like a pretty good teacher. Well, that's
happy.
great. What's the secret to success?
Be quiet and still.
That's good. I thought you were going to say listen to your husband.
Well,
I'm glad
that too.
Independent outdoor woman. Okay. Well, Charlie Wadirski from Sheboygan got a 14-pointer, and this is not really typical up there in your country, is it?
The weight, yes, but the rack, no.
The weight.
Big.
We had what?
207 pounds.
Holy cow, that's a huge one. How, in Sheboygan County, you got this around home?
Yeah, close.
Can you tell us exactly where?
No.
I love it. That's great. 14-point buck, though. This was your 10th buck with a bow in 19 years of bow hunting only.
Yes, sir.
You're a purist.
I try to be.
How many pounds do you pull back?
74 pounds.
Oh, too much for me. And here's a guy who has way too much for me with a bow. Glenn Campbell. Glenn, you came on the show with this 10-point, is it?
Yeah.
Let me check. Okay, that was a 10-point, which looked really big when we had you on the show. What looked even bigger was your 100-pound bow. That's something fierce. But we heard your story, and we see how you stack up here. You're sort of on the small end. Your cousin, of all people, put you on the small end. And this is Dave Campbell from Bellevue, and you also hunted down in southern Michigan with a bow. And how many points is this?
11.
Scores 137 on commemorative bucks. How much did it weigh?
176 pounds.
Wow, you shoot a 100-pound bow, too?
No, sir.
How big do you shoot?
70 pounds. All I can handle.
You guys are still out of my class. That's, I bet, but that's a great buck. And here's one. Here we have our buck in our hefty bag right here. And this is Chuck Rowland. Chuck, the 15 points is, well, this is an interesting rack because it looks like it's well worn. I bet it beat every bush to death in Sanilac County.
Probably did.
Rubbing and scraping and carrying on. This buck is going to have a shoulder mount, and we probably have about 50 pounds right here in skin. How much did it weigh?
330 pounds.
Wow. Was that any good to eat?
It was pretty good.
Was it?
Yeah.
I imagine you still have a lot in the freezer.
A whole lot.
Well, congratulations on that one. And now we're going to move up to Robert Robinson from Mount Clemens, who has the widest rack here on Big Buck Night. How wide is it?
25 inches.
Jeez, that's an extremely wide rack for 12-pointer, taken in St. Clair County, around the thumb. And it weighed how much?
185 pounds.
You know, the great thing about this deer is that you have been hunting for how many years?
10 years.
And how many deer have you gotten?
1.
And how many deer have you shot at?
2.
2?
1 with a bow and this one here.
This is the first one you got with a gun. Well, that's a great story. Well, you'll find that a lot of the big buck hunters have great stories, but they aren't widely experienced, a lot of them, or at least they haven't taken a lot of deer. And that's the same story, you know, we have in fishing. We have so much water in this state full of all kinds of fish, and there's basic types of tackle you can use. You can use a casting outfit. I prefer this for bass, for pike. Live bait for pike, I like using something like this. If you want to have a lot of fun and not have to contend with backlashes, and open face spinning might be the thing for you. The difficulty with the spinning is it's very limber rod, a little more difficult to set the hook on bass and pike, but a lot of fun, especially for the smaller fish like bluegill. But don't think that you have to have a lot of fancy equipment to fish Michigan, because you don't. Here's a rig that you can get for $8 or $10, sometimes less. Just a spin cast, very simple outfit, great for perch. And you know, where would I go if I wanted to catch all kinds of fish, have all kinds of accommodations? Well, my favorite place is to go up here to Houghton Lake because it's got just about everything. Let's go up there right now and see if we can't get some fish on. Well, I'm about ready to switch lures. Nice. Well, hold it. I see how big it is. I think I'll stick with mine. Oh. Well, that's not doing too bad. You know, you seem to be adding an inch for every pike here. By tomorrow morning, we ought to have a keeper, haven't we? We should. No, I think I'm gonna need a helper here. Woohoo! What are you fishing with, Ed? Get her on the sunset. I got a walleye. Oh, hey. Holy cow. Where's the net? No net. No net? No net. For walleye fishing with no net? Trost will pick it up with his bare hands. You bet I will. You bet I'll go in for it if I have to. That's a keeper. Hey. That's a keeper. All right, Eddie.
A welcome sight, Ed. And I can already tell you, Fred, that tasted real good.
Oh, you already ate it, huh? Yeah. Yeah, those little walleye up there, and there's some big ones in Houghton Lake too. We haven't seen any master angler come out of there, but you know that lure came right out of its mouth. I just showed you there what happened there on that, and you have to keep a tight line. But as long as you keep a tight line, that's really the trick to catching some of the crappies. There's some good crappies in that lake. And what's your favorite bait?
Hey, that beetle spin.
Well, you found it worked. We tried a lot of different things, but that beetle spin sure worked for you. You used that beetle spin just about the whole time. But we used it drifting, you used it casting, you used it trolling. It worked. And of course you can use a variety of baits. All of the live baits that you saw us use and many of the other baits work up there, especially the weedless variety. I just have to caution you on that. But while we used the wind on that one evening, the next morning we woke up, the front just pounded us with cold weather. 29 degrees, and this was just last week. The wind had died, the water was flat, you couldn't drift if you wanted to, so we go to trolling. Just to have your motor idle down, and that's the way you can give the action to your lure and catch fish, as we did. Ron Reed was the first one to pull in. We were going for walleye, trolling some. Of course, you can catch anything, any place in this lake, and he caught a nice little rock bass. We caught a stringer of them. And there you were, Ed, with that disgusting fisherman's luck you had on this little jaunt. Nothing but the beetle spin, and I kept trying to show you what else would work. Right. Oh, we caught.
And everything did work.
Everything
did work.
But not quite as consistently. You got one pike aboard. The fun is waiting for that walleye, that big walleye.
Right.
They don't put up such a fight, but boy, are they good eating. Just sort of a prize up there. But I tell you, big rock bass, I expect at a Master Angler weekend to set a state record. Somebody is going to set a state record on either a pumpkin seed or, maybe a rock bass. One of these types of fish that records, people don't tend to enter them, but we know these Master Angler fish live in Houghton Lake. Even Master Angler pike. Walleye, bass, largemouth, smallmouth. But these little hammer handles are fun to catch, I think.
And tasty, that size.
Oh yeah, this is a good, clean, warm water lake that you can't beat the taste of the fish out of there. There you are again, Ed. I mean, we didn't tape all of the fish you caught. But here, hey, I did it with the Daredevil.
Right.
I was proud of this one. Casting.
We got some weeds. Yeah. Get the weeds. Yeah. Well, got it on the Daredevil. Yeah. That's a classic Michigan pike on a classic bait. Yep.
That's for sure.
It is another pike.
And you tied into the one we were waiting for.
Now watch if it runs the boat here.
I thought it was a pike.
A lot different than the other one. It is? Oh, running the boat. That's a pike. Look at it. That's what I love about it. Big, whatever it is. Big walleye. Big walleye.
Shows you how much I know.
Walleye. Ooh.
A lot of fish run the boat.
Jeez, look at that. Oh, look at that. Will ya? Oh. I don't know any
Ed, that was a beaut. I was excited.
Oh, that is great. Yeah.
That was what we were looking for.
Bobber's down and it's gotta be, should I set it now?
But this was the technique.
yet?
A lot of times we were fishing with the bobber.
Oh, look at that bobber.
It's exciting fishing and
That's
fishing,
nice.
on the side for walleye. Look at this. This excites me every time I see it.
Coming back towards the boat, okay. There it goes down. Should I do it? It's tight. It's tight?
What a thrill.
Okay, I got him.
I don't know if it was a 20-pounder or
I think he'd be pretty good, but
10-pounder.
he doesn't feel too good right here. He's coming right towards the boat.
So I thought maybe it was a walleye.
Trouble is usually. Oh, I see this. Oh, there he is. Under the boat. Boy, this is a pike will do that every time, Ed.
See? Just listen to me.
Oh,
Ed.
that's a keeper. That's a keeper. All right. Okay. 2 in. 2 in the boat. Hey, that was all right.
Always excites me to review these tapes up at Houghton Lake. And the secret to success is not so much the type of equipment that's used or the bait. It's knowing the lake. And the difficulty in fishing a lake like Houghton Lake is that it's so big, people try to fish the whole lake. But if you just take a little corner of it and work it, you can learn how to fish it. And we certainly did. Now, another thing, when we caught a lot of the fish we caught, and we caught them very easily, that's in the spring. May and June. Easy to catch then. They're out there the rest of the time. In fact, they're all over Michigan. All of the lakes you see contain fish of some type or another. But now what we want to do is go back, take a break from our fishing here and get back to Big Buck Night 1983. Talk to some of the biggest bucks, find out who the winners were. But you know, one of the things that we enjoy in the outdoors, all deer hunters enjoy the mounted animals, artwork, all types of things. So let's talk about the Wildlife Artist of the Year in our whitetail category. Now, a lot of these bucks you see here tonight are going to be involved, I hope, at our Sportsman's Banquet down there receiving awards, and they might even be in our display of big bucks at the Boat and Fishing Show. Our Whitetail Artist of the Year was Chuck DeNault. He made this painting, which has been extremely popular, a limited edition print, and besides being charter members of the Michigan Outdoors Club, all of the folks who brought deer down here on Big Buck Night will also be getting one of these limited edition prints. We talked with Chuck about this painting a couple weeks ago, and here's a bit of that interview.
Basically, years ago, Fred, I got started into bow hunting paintings by working for Bow Hunter magazine as a contributor, basically.
Now you're a staff artist.
That's true.
But the thing is, like this picture right here, most people, even people who have purchased this painting, and I know several people who have had this painting a couple months and they've never seen the bow hunter up there. And of course, this is one of your trademarks, having a bow hunter somewhere stashed in the picture. Why do you do that?
Just because I want to, I guess.
It's got to be sort of a trademark, and because you're a bow hunter.
That's true.
I happen to know you really love the sport. You have so many things in your paintings that don't meet the eye right off the bat. In other words, like these does here. People look at the does in your paintings, and some people don't see those for quite a while. But this is the story right here of the hunter, and here's the buck that's getting away. But you know, this draft that you brought us, this is how this started out, of the buck walking through the woods, the hunter in the background. You have another doe evidently right up here, another one of Chuck DeNault's trademarks. And if you look very carefully at the painting, look very close, what you see here is, where did that go? Right there. That's the ear of the deer. And once you see that, you don't mistake it. We gave away all the secrets of this painting, Chuck.
We'll make a new one for next year.
But you know, why do you think that most people who voted in this category down at the Boat and Fishing Show in the whitetail category, among all the other prints of big bucks featuring the buck, picked this one?
Fred, I haven't the slightest idea. Apparently they like the scene, or they like the thought of what's happening there, or they've experienced a similar situation.
Been out in the woods, and they were up there, and they know the buck went by there, and they just enjoy seeing it.
I'm sure it's happened to me.
The paintings that you do, all of the calendars you do for Bow Hunter magazine, are you surprised at which ones the public tends to like?
Definitely. It seems that the public sometimes like what I do not. If I have a special picture that I really like, the public might not even...
Kind of breaks your heart?
No, not really. Not really.
Did you think that this one was going to be as popular as it is?
No, I didn't.
Well, I want to tell you, congratulations, Chuck.
Thank you, Fred.
For being our Whitetail Artist of the Year, 1983. Good. I hear you have a really corker of a picture in 1984.
It's on its way.
And Joan went. Have you seen his painting yet?
Yes, I've got
Oh,
a
you
lot of
have?
them hanging in my home.
Okay, well, Joan lives up in Hope, where Chuck lives.
Yes.
And the one that he's going to enter this year is a corker, huh? You think? Or maybe you don't like it? Well, we'll see how it turns out. I tell you, this elusive buck didn't get away when you got a 14-point from Luce County.
Yes.
Up in the UP. It says here you've hunted for 23 years, and the
Right.
first 16 years were kind of dry.
Mm-hmm.
But what have you done in the last 7 years?
Got a buck every year.
What's the secret?
I don't know. Just find your spot and stick with it.
Well, you found a good one. We'll put a map of that spot in our next Club Digest. Can we do
Okay.
that?
Okay, if you could find it.
Yeah, there's a challenge. Okay, Dave Belcher from Manitou Beach. You got an 8-point that has some tremendously tall tines, and look at how it scored 151.4. How big of a deer was it?
185 pounds.
That's bigger than you, isn't it? You play football?
Yep.
16-year-old. This is your second deer, but first one with a bow. You got this with a bow. Is that right, on November 24th?
No, I got this one with the gun. I got
Oh,
a
this?
doe with the gun.
You got a doe
With the bow.
with a bow, and you got the, hey, you got a good start on a deer hunting career right there from Lenawee County. Great buck, 185-pounder. Oh, everybody knows him right here. This is John Daniels Jr. You saw him back in 1964. Big Buck Night, Morton F., right?
Right.
Okay, you're back again here on Big Buck Night on Michigan Outdoors with a 15-pointer. You got this Clinton County.
About 10 miles from here.
Uh-huh, that's where I was hunting. I must have heard you on the morning of November 20th, or afternoon. Okay, well, that's great. This is your 14th buck in 25 years of hunting.
Right.
You stick to southern Michigan?
Generally, yes.
You're gunning from now on. Well, this is the third largest one. And Mike Mitchell was brought down here by Tim Gothier. Tim, you're a taxidermist up there and a commemorative buck scorer, and you helped out on some of this scoring. You said you not only would bring Mike down, but you brought a photo here. Tell us what this photo is.
That's a group of hunters, customers of mine out of Bay City that hunt up in the UP, and that's this year's kill.
Now, we got to clarify, there's 6 big racks in there with 3 hunters.
There's 3 other hunters.
3 other hunters that weren't in the picture. Is this Paul Mickey's camp?
It's a group of guys that hunt with Paul, but no, they're not. It's in a different camp.
Okay, boy, they get big bucks. Can you give us an idea of where these were taken?
Between Newberry and Seney is about as close as they can get.
Boy, but they do that just about every year.
Yep, they had 8 last year.
Let's take one more peek at that. Look at this. The big bucks, they got 8 of them last year?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I'd sure like to find out their secrets. I don't know if they tell us, though. Mike, John, come on over here. We have the big 2 right here. Mike Mitchell and you got this, you're from Paradise.
Yes.
Up in the UP. Well, that's great. And John View from Auburn Heights, 17-point, 22-point. Come in here, judges. And Bert, which one's the biggest?
This one right here. It's Boone and Crockett.
Come on, Tim.
One in a
scored
million.
a 2. This is a Boone and Crockett rack. It scored out, what, 200?
202.
202. And this is still green score.
Correct.
It might shrink a little bit and change, but this will make the Boone and Crockett record book the only one that you found so far?
So far it is, yes.
So far this season. Well, let's not sell Mike short from Paradise with a 17-point moose. Look at that. Paul mated almost.
I'd hate to have to pick between the 2 of them if I had them both to shoot at.
Boy, that's for sure. The scoring turned out, Mike, that if we go by the numbers, yours wasn't quite as big.
That's right.
Which rack do you like better?
That one looks pretty good, too.
That one looks good, too? Well, these are dandy racks. Now, honestly, judges, did all of you 3 judges who scored exactly the same?
Certainly.
Don't give me this certainly stuff. Did Ned score a little short? One of them a little short? I bet he did. I bet he did. Well, these are great bucks. I want to know what the secret is to getting a big buck like this.
Just have to be lucky. That's all I found.
Okay, let's see. Let me check your records here. Happened to see a deer in a marsh, took the gun out of the car, and shot. One of those stories. Okay, and we heard John's story. This is an Oakland County buck, and this is an Upper Peninsula buck. Southern Michigan seemed to have made it. But you know, here on Big Buck Night, what is this all about? Really? You know, when we think about it, these are really freak antlers, freak racks. It's not really what I call a freak show, but Big Buck Night is something special. But deer hunting, for us hunters to be out and be a part of nature rather than apart from it is what it's all about. And I think we all like the meat in the freezer, don't we? You guys all eat deer?
Right.
And gals too? That's really what it's all about. This deer here, how old was it?
I really don't know.
How many teeth did it have in its mouth?
2.5.
2.5 teeth. It's an old buck. We'll talk more about big bucks on Michigan Outdoors, and I hope you join me. We're here again for another edition next week.